Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everybody. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is still spinning on those ones and twos. And it's a great day today. Somewhat. We have some good news. We have some crazy news. Fam, I'm over here in the desert. It is hot as can be. I'm dehydrated. But I just had a beat you, and I'm ready to do the show with you. How you feeling over there?
I'm good. I would say it's definitely a mixed day because last night was really, really heavy for a lot of people. People were out till the wee hours of the morning, protesting in many states, and it was getting really, really heated. And I think there's going to be more of that happening. So
yeah, well, you think that the actual protest might increase a little bit more?
Yeah,
I think it's going to take some wind out of the sails.
I think the arrest might, but the charges are not okay. The charges are, we're going to talk about the charges. The charges are like very, very minimum for what he was arrested. They're not even charging him for first-degree murder. They're not charging him for second-degree murder. They're looking for like a third-degree, like something tiny like that. And I don't think that's going to be enough.
I know a lot of people, though, they feel that if they go for murder, they don't have a shot. If they feel that they go for manslaughter, they might get something. So
it's true, but that's a problem in and of itself because it's like the officer can always say, well, I was scared for my life, but really they had 4 people on the guy.
I know, right? I was scared he was going to burst through my knee with his neck bone while he was handcuffed behind his back.
While he was telling him to get up, and he had his knee the entire time. So let's just start by going over the fact that, yes, the breaking news is that the Minneapolis officer who killed George Floyd, or who is accused of killing him, has finally been charged with murder. And it's a specific type of murder, like I said. And this officer, of course, was fired, and he was the one that was seen in the video, last name Chauvin. And he was arrested, and he was charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter. Now, he's not going to get both charges. You can't be accused of the same crime and have 2 different charges. That's double jeopardy laws. But this is according to Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman. He says the investigation is ongoing, adding that the anticipated charges against the other 3 officers involved in the incident. So there's going to be charges coming in for those guys. And he said, we entrust our police officers to use certain amounts of force to do their job to protect us. They commit a criminal act if they use this force unreasonably. So I guess they're going for the unreasonable force scenario. But again, I think that is a weak argument. We'll see. I think they're trying to get what they can get right now at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the charge is really light. So
yeah, but okay, let's talk about this. I don't know if this is a positive thing or a negative thing. Obviously, it's not the right charges we want. If justice is really served, or accountability, whatever you want to call it, that police officer should be held to the same standards as a human being, any civilian. They should say that. But they never are. In fact, they don't even go after anything. So the fact that they're going after something and they arrested him quickly, but I do think the arrest comes in light of the fact that there's been so many protests around the country where, Minneapolis is on fire. So I think it was kind of forced by the people. But I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted. I'm happy he's arrested. I would like to see more. But this is something different. It is a start, I guess, for accountability.
It is a start for accountability. And also, the new video shows that Floyd was on the ground with 3 other officers. And there is a video of surveillance that is kind of showing that. Do you have that ready? Okay. And this is a different angle. Pasta, we know all about angles. And in this angle, it really shows the how he was pinned down by 3 other police officers. So
my face is gone. I can't breathe, man. Please let me stand. Please, man, I can't breathe. My face is gone. I can't breathe, man. Please let me stand. Please, man, I can't breathe.
Yeah, so those officers obviously, and like the lawyer said, Mike Freeman, he anticipates charges for them as well. If the guy is getting third degree or maybe manslaughter, those officers, I'm not convinced they're going to get that much either. But I mean, that just shows that he didn't act alone. So that's a new information out of that. But fam, let's talk about what happened last night for a second, because last night a lot of people were up till very late trying to keep up with what was happening. They took over the 3rd precinct, then they took over the 5th precinct, the protesters. And then it was like fireworks were coming up when the 3rd precinct was taken over. Then we had some gunshots in Louisville. We had all of these things happening at Phoenix, in California, and Fontana. So we're going to go over all of these things that were happening. I heard there were things in Ohio as well, and other states. Things have been happening. People have been getting out there. People were getting out there in the middle of the night. And it's really interesting to see how quickly all of these protests spread in a matter of minutes. We have thousands of protesters that took over the 3rd precinct. And this was the precinct, of course, where the police officers that took down Floyd worked.
I think they say rioters have taken over.
So, so they took it over, and then they there were fireworks that were shown in other videos where it was like really symbolic, and a lot of people were kind of celebrating that because it was reminiscent of the Star-Spangled Banner, when we were fighting the Revolutionary War. For the longest time, a lot of Black people have felt like they've been targeted and nothing has been done. So if justice doesn't happen, at least a symbolic type of justice, Yeah.
Well, I mean, enough is enough. How much shit has to really happen? And it would just come to a point where we get out of control for law enforcement, if that's what you even want to call them nowadays. Somebody even said a good thing. They're like gang members with badges nowadays, and that's how they acted. Something has to stop. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that every single cop is a racist, but there are a lot of racist cops. And just like a restaurant or any other type of business, whatever comes out of that business, everybody is accountable for it.
Yeah.
So, they have to start policing themselves. This is just like the church. We have to have serious screening processes in play to make sure that we don't have the wrong person become a cop, just like you can't have the wrong person become a priest, dealing with children, dealing with civilians. So, I mean, this is kind of it's bittersweet in some ways to see the fact that we push people towards, accountability, some form of accountability. But what I did like to see about all these protests, there was a lot of diversity. A lot of white people showed up to stand with Black Lives Matter and other groups to say, hey, you know what? We got your back. We're on your side. We want this man held accountable too.
Yeah, exactly. And then the National Guard arrived in Minneapolis amidst the violent riots. The mayor told the police that they should evacuate. In fact, he evacuated that 3rd precinct, thankfully for the police officers. And they took over, like I said, the 5th precinct. And then the National Guard started arriving. So we have a picture, and then we have a video.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, God. Yo. Yo. They called them niggas in, bro.
Yeah, so the National Guard came in. It was pretty late when they came in. And this person said on Twitter, Minneapolis showed the world that the U.S. police aren't untouchable. If the legal system won't make police face consequences for their actions, the people will. So again, I think the majority of people, I don't want to say on the left, but the majority of people were like, yeah, I mean, how are we going to be mad? Nothing was done. And then as a result, of course, this morning we have the arrest. So, I mean, this is what we've been saying. We've been talking about it. You know, a lot of us have been relying on politicians to change things. For Medicare for all, for anti-war, for whatever it is that we want, we need to be in the streets. I'm not calling for everybody to go looting to Target, but I am saying, like, we have to think outside of the electorate. And this just shows you that sort of pressure will work. You just have to do it. And I want to see us do more of this in terms of the taking to the streets instead of waiting for people to change things electorally, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Fiorella. You know, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I still think too there's a lot of work to be done with the people. You know, we saw this in electoral kind of ways, the way people didn't come together, they fought each other. I still think there's a lot of work to be done on the social front too as well. Glad and happy for the diversity, but I would like to see somebody really step up and bring people together and understand what the policemen really are. Not that they're just racially biased. The police are also there to enforce the laws of the elites and the rich. They are there. All the laws are set up for the elite to exploit the poor. And there's a lot of poor white people too as well. And not to say that this wasn't racially motivated, because it was. It was like a guy treating a person like an animal that he was putting down, and it was disgusting. But like I said, I am glad that we push for something, but I still see a lot of work to be done. I want to make sure that we can find this movement. We can find that person who's going to take a scenario like this in the name of Greg Floyd and bring us all together. So.
Well, and more than, and just like not just bring people together in the sense of like unity without solving the issue, but like bring this issue as part of all of our issues, like as part of like a general strike type of movement. That's what I'd like to continue seeing to address the economic concerns that people have, because a lot of these reactions are not just because of Floyd. They're also because people are just fed up with everything. Yeah. And this is just the last straw. So, oh, okay. You went away for a second. Okay. So I don't know how I feel about this because I don't trust CNN. But according to a CNN journalist, they arrested. Yeah. The police in Minneapolis had arrested Omar Jimenez live on CNN, and the camera crew and his producer were also taken and being arrested. They made sure to also talk about how specifically it was Black and people of color that were arrested. You know, I don't trust CNN. I trust them to manipulate things for their agenda. But in general, we shouldn't be arresting journalists, period. That's obvious. Like, I don't care if I don't agree with them or if they're not even journalists. But we shouldn't just be arresting people who are supposed to be press. But I just don't know.
We know what it's like, right? Remember New Hampshire and stuff? You get in a certain space, you get grabbed, you get moved out of the way and stuff. You know, it's a free press out there. This is the fourth branch of government. And, you know, we're not fans of CNN in this household. That being said, you know, I don't know if I believe it. It's CNN. You know, it's kind of like, I don't remember, was it Jorge Ramos who was shunned by Trump, or was somebody in the press room? He was shunned by Trump. And they just made such a huge, big part of it. It was like ridiculous. It's like, stop like trying to say that this guy's a free press just because he was bullying Trump and Trump went back. You got real press out there like Max Blumenthal and other people getting shunned. I mean, they threatened to arrest Max Blumenthal and put charges on him again. Remember the whole Venezuelan thing? Yeah. I mean, that's a real serious tragedy. Did that hit the front page of the news? No, we had to talk about it. But somebody gets arrested in CNN. Forget about it. Everybody starts screaming and yelling like Trump's the evil guy against the press. It's always his fault anyways.
Yeah, I mean, Trump hasn't been doing himself any favors, and we're going to talk about that. But he did do one good thing, sort of good thing. I mean, I don't think it's the full answer. But to continue on Minnesota, St. Paul officer, and this is what we showed yesterday, right? We showed the guy with the umbrella breaking all the windows, and then subsequently somebody confronting him saying, are you a cop? And
Cop?
the guy
Yeah.
ran away. So according to the people in the southern part of Minneapolis, St. Paul police officer is the one that allegedly started the South Minneapolis riots. And that's kind of what we were talking about yesterday. So this guy kind of broke it down on Twitter, and his name is Colin Kalmaker. He said, a St. Paul police officer is alleged to be the culprit responsible for kickstarting the riot in South Minneapolis by methodically busting out windows at an AutoZone on East Lake Street, St. Paul, or on East Lake Street. That's what we saw yesterday. St. Paul police have acknowledged media inquiries but have yet to comment. And this person said, Gypsy Eyed Beauty said, it has been revealed that Officer Jacob Peterson of the St. Paul Police Department was the culprit responsible for kickstarting the riot in South Minneapolis. He was captured on camera and identified by his ex-wife. So
wow.
So we progressives, a lot of progressives were like, yeah, this doesn't look good. This is weird. This doesn't make sense. And we got it right. We had it right from the start that it was this guy was the one who was starting it. And I was talking to a few of my friends yesterday who were during Occupy, who were there protesting, and they told me that the police did the same thing during Occupy, that they actually were undercover and they were the ones starting up crap to kind of divide and conquer. It's classic divide and conquer tactics, where they start something, they get more violent, and that's how they get people to get distracted from what they're supposed to be doing. And I think we're going to see a lot of this. If there are protests that are going to continue to rise for whatever issue, we're going to see a lot of these infiltrators. And it's not conspiracy. This stuff happens all the time. This is how they do this. This is how they quell things. It's happened before on many occasions. So
let me tell you what it is too as well, because a lot of people, can you hear me? I'm so sorry. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand foreign policy. They don't understand the CIA. They don't understand the CIA tactics. And a lot of CIA tactics are about infiltrating groups, as nefarious characters to actually start shit to make it look like it was the protesters or whatnot causing these problems. That and therefore gives permission to the other side, the police or the authority, to then attack and strike back, because they said, look what they're doing. They're rioting. They're being crazy. They're going nuts. That's what they were trying to do. That's what they were attempting to do. And they got caught. Anyway, it's kind of cool that a lot of the people in the public, that one guy carrying the Little Caesars pizza was like, who are you? What's going on? He's just trying to talk to the guy. And eventually he's like, what are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we understand these tactics. We read them in all the books. You know what I'm saying? We talked about on our show, fam, the way in Ukraine, these protesters, the Slovad, I believe they were called, Sloboda, whatever they are, they went from Ukraine to Hong Kong to be with the protesters, to start agitation, you know what I'm saying, to make the protests get even angrier and more violent. And therefore, the elites can then swoop in and do anything in the name of justice because they say they're stopping violence, when in actuality, they started it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they do. And what the media also does is they don't show like people coming together. They like to completely just monetize out of the divide, right? And they haven't showed this, that after all of the looting and all of the things that were happening in South Minneapolis, people came together. So the community came together to clean up South Minneapolis, and they were all just picking up trash and fixing a lot of what the damage that happened on Thursday. And you're not going to really see that talked about in the media because it's not something that really plays to the narrative of, well, we all hate each other. And I think more than people hate each other, people just hate the lack of justice, the slowness of the justice system, the fact that politicians aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. This story, fam, that's coming up is really interesting because it really puts a new kind of light onto the relationship between Officer Chauvin and George Floyd. So according to Andrea Jenkins, who's the vice president of the Minneapolis City Council, she said that both of them knew each other, or at least she said that they actually worked at a restaurant in the 3rd Precinct and that they were co-workers for a long time. But she actually got a couple of things wrong, but let's hear what she has to say.
I think it's really interesting that right across the street from where Allie is standing is a restaurant called El Nuevo Rodeo. George Floyd worked at that restaurant. So did Officer Chauvin. They were both bouncers at that restaurant for 17 years. So Officer Chauvin, he knew George. They were co-workers for a very long time. I think it's really interesting.
Okay, so she's saying they knew each other for a really long time, that they were co-workers, blah, blah, blah. But according to, this is from insider.com and to other sources in media, George Floyd and Derek Chauvin had worked at the same club, but George had only worked there for a year, and Chauvin had been working there for 17 years. And it was called El Nuevo Rodeo Club, and George Floyd worked there during the year of 2019. Maya Santa Maria was the club owner until last year, and she told ABC that Chauvin was the club's off-duty police officer and that Floyd was a bouncer. So they may not necessarily have interacted, but because the Chauvin worked outside and the security guards were inside. So it's just really weird that, they happen to have an altercation then. And I don't know. I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't ever have ran into each other. I find that hard to believe. And it's interesting that we're getting different bits and pieces in the story where she's saying they knew each other for 17 years and people were like, no, he only worked there for 1 year. So I don't know what you think of this, but it really makes things a lot more interesting.
It makes things weird, and it's just a situation of like, who knew what? I mean, are they trying to flip this to say that Floyd did something wrong to Chauvin and Chauvin had a beef to pick, maybe? Is it something like that they're trying to say?
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah,
it's just weird. It seems like kind of staged. I don't know if it's an excuse for anything whatsoever or a reason. I mean, it's definitely not an excuse, but it's a weird situation. I don't know. It's kind of like Epstein-esque.
Epstein-esque. By the way, the Epstein documentary was released on Netflix, so I'm going to start watching it.
It's Netflix, huh? A bunch of Obama and Epstein's friends. I'm sure that Netflix is going to tell the real story of what's going on.
Of course they
My
are.
ass. I have a super chat. Should I read it or you want to wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a super chat contribution from Philip Blair. Thank you so much. Pasta, I just DM'd you a great 3-minute clip of Senator RFK responding to the 1968 riots that followed the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Cowboy hat, Ray. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Hey, Gabby. I can hear all that stuff on the screen. Huh? Sorry
All
about
right.
that. Yeah.
So, okay. So George Floyd murder case attorney Freeman says there are other evidence that doesn't support a change. And let me see what this is talking about. So a charge. So, they were saying initially that the video showed that there was nothing leading up to a murder charge. So I really think that the murder charge came because of the protest, because literally a few hours ago, yesterday, they were saying that there's new evidence that there wasn't a charge needed on Chauvin because they have evidence that there was something prior to that. So let's just hear what he has to say.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a violation of my ethics to talk and evaluate evidence before we announce our charging decision, and I will not do that. I will say this, that video is graphic and horrific and terrible, and no person should do that. But my job in the end is to prove that he violated a criminal statute, and there is other evidence that does not support a criminal charge. We need to wade through all of that evidence and to come through with a meaningful determination, and we are doing that to the best of our ability.
So that
What did he say? I missed half of it.
So, well, basically said there wasn't enough evidence. It was a very graphic video, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. But that was right before the massive protest started. And then they've obviously changed their tune. They've arrested the guy. And who is this guy, by the way? Who is Derek M. Chauvin?
Oh, here we go.
Because he didn't commit just one murder, 2, 3. This is his 4th murder. So, Minneapolis police officer who murdered George Floyd on May 25th, 2020. The restraint technique used by Chauvin to murder Floyd was not part of the department's training. He was represented by Tom Kelly, the same attorney who got Officer Geronimo Yanez, who murdered Philando Castile, if you guys remember, acquitted. Yeah. So he was acquitted. Derek Chauvin was put on leave in 2011 for inappropriate police shooting of Alaskan Native American Leroy Martinez. Chauvin also shot Ira Latrell Tolles, an unarmed black 21-year-old man, in 2008. Chauvin was one of the officers who murdered Wayne Reyes, a Latino man with 16 bullets forced into him. A total of 42 rounds were shot off. Chauvin and another officer were chasing a car in 2005, causing the death of 3 people, according to Communities United Against Police Brutality. There are 12 police brutality complaints against Chauvin in Minneapolis Office of Police Conduct.
In the database.
Complaint database.
Yeah.
They're all listed as closed, non-public, and no discipline.
No, they got to stop this shit. This is, once again, they hide, they protect themselves. We need full transparency. What does it mean that they are closed, non-public, and no discipline?
Yeah.
No, we pay the police. We should be able to see what they do. They work for us.
This is ridiculous. I mean,
so stupid. Sorry.
Any normal person would be arrested like upon the first murder, the second maybe. Like, I mean, this guy has a whole record of doing things and nobody knows about it because he's been protected by the system. He's been protected by his people. This is why I'm not okay with the charges that have been placed against him. I think that is to quell the protests. I'm not necessarily buying it that they're even going to charge him because I think that it's just to get people to calm down. That's what I think it's all about. This guy should literally go to jail for first-degree murder. You look at his record, you're going to see this guy has been getting away with it every single time. And further, They need to do an investigation into that entire precinct. This is why they burnt the precinct, because to those people that live there, a local man that was there said, seeing that precinct in fire is cathartic because these people have done so much harm to members of our community. And now when we're looking at this record, we're seeing, holy crap, how corrupt are these police officers in this precinct and the surrounding precinct, the 5th as well, because they've been getting away with this for years. So I honestly,
systematic. Sorry about that.
I just don't think it's enough. Yeah.
Well, I agree with you there, Fiorella. I hope they kind of trump up the charges, if you will say. But, this is a systematic problem. Why? Because cops have been getting away with the stuff all around the country for many years, and they're always protected by their own kind. We have to stop that. We have to defund them. We did many stories on how they are so armed to the teeth that they brought the weapons back home from Iraq and they gave them to the police department. They just painted them black and put their department on their vehicle. So it's a systemic problem. This is a start. We need to go further. But once again, we have to police the police. They have to be held accountable. We have to defund them as far as giving them all this weapons and whatnot. If we were going to fund the police, and this should be public knowledge as well, it's going to be towards training, you know what I'm saying? Towards hostage negotiation, towards things that will cause less less deaths. And not only that, fam, we've talked about bail reform. We need that across the board too as well, because no matter what, it seems like a man of color in Minneapolis is always going to get arrested no matter what it is. We saw it in outside of San Diego the other day, had like, a camera on the cop, but it seems like they'll arrest a black man and ask questions later because they get away with it. The culture allows it. But though people don't realize that even if that man is let go, the bail alone could really sack a person. You know what I'm saying? The bail alone. And about 75% of these people who are arrested, their cases are dropped. But guess what? That money still goes into the system. The courts got to get fed. The police department's got to get fed from our tax dollars to feed prisoners overnight. The bail bondsmen make their money. It's the prison industrial complex. It goes round and round and round. So not only do we need to make sure that we hold our police people accountable, we need bail reform because it will fix a lot of things. This is just a step in the beginning. We need a lot of work that still is ahead of us.
Yeah, and like this obviously isn't just in Minneapolis. It's been happening all over the country. So if you guys recall, the shooting of unarmed Black woman Breonna Taylor happened in Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky in general. You have somebody like Mitch McConnell as a freaking senator. It's not necessarily the most progressive place, to say the least. But according to the New York Times yesterday, there were 7 shots, and 7 people were shot at. Initially, the reports were that it came from police officers, and then the New York Times let out an article, as well as other local media there, said that the shots actually came from inside the crowd. And this was on Thursday night as tensions there continued to escalate over the fatal shooting of the Black woman by 3 white police officers in March. So this happened back in March. And so they were having a protest last night, and there was fire, there was shots, and then people didn't know where these shots were coming from. But of those reported injured, 2 were taken into surgery and 5 were in good condition. The Louisville mayor, Greg Fisher, said this Friday morning, he said no officers discharged their weapon and that the violence came from within the crowd. So the videos posted on social media appear to show the shots being fired while demonstrators surrounded the police vehicle. But according to all of these people, they did not come from the police officers. Now, I obviously have distrust of any reporting regarding anything now, because we saw how they twisted it when we were at the protest Wednesday. We saw how they twisted it entirely. So I'm not necessarily convinced until I see more evidence. But we have a couple of videos here we can show. There's this picture here of them lining up right in front of the statue in Louisville, Kentucky. And then there's a couple of videos of the firings. It's kind of hard to tell.
They were just around the vehicle, a hospital vehicle, and somebody started shooting?
Yeah, there was a law enforcement vehicle, and they were protesting right in front of the building. And then the shots were heard, 7 shots. The New York Times and the law enforcement are saying it came from the crowd. Initially, the crowd who posted the videos said the police officers were firing at them. So we're having conflicting reports as to where that came from. I think there's another video here, or it's the same. Okay, so we have there's this person that was there, and they said 6 in Jefferson and Louisville. This is a line of white people forming a barrier between black protesters and the police. This is love. This is what you do with your privilege. Okay, so they were lining up there protecting the black protesters from the police. And it was the majority of white people. So I mean, I like seeing things like that. I like seeing people come together, you know, work together to kind of make a point. But like I said, I'm not convinced on the firing and where they came from, but I'm just giving you guys like a report as to what they're saying it was. There's also
you never know what to believe. Like you said, after what we experienced the other night.
Yeah.
I mean, Blueberg hit that shit right up, and like we even had to fight donkeys that we knew. It was like, guys, we were there. We were at that protest. We were there for 3 hours before this shit happened.
I was there for 5 hours. Yeah.
We were there for 5 hours, but 3 hours before it happened, like almost 2.5 hours. There was no violence.
They showed like a few seconds of it, and they're trying to make a story out of the few seconds that they showed. There's also a video of these people earlier during the day just kind of like protesting outside of Louisville. There was a lot of people there in the middle of downtown Louisville, and they were just getting ready to protest there. I'm showing that because a lot of people like to say that the whole thing was violent up until that point, and that's not the case. And then later on, from breaking 911, we have the protesters in a standoff.
A group of protesters has joined arms at 6th and Jefferson, where the main line is here that you can see from here. Police officers in their full riot gear here at this point, probably 200 strong, at least from where I can see. It appears that an officer is at least thinking about or preparing to fire some kind of non-lethal device. Just had somebody throw there you go, something has just been launched. Tear gas at some point. I'm going to toss it over to Chad Mills as we're getting some of the what's been launched here into us. Throw it back to you guys right now.
Yeah. So that was all happening last night. And in Phoenix, they actually had their own sort of protests where they were pretty much out there in the middle of the night. And this person paints it as if these are violent people, but I'm sure, again, that's not necessarily the case.
Phoenix, right?
Man. And then there's just another video here. As the crowd dwindles, protesters are throwing rocks at Phoenix PD headquarters. More police are coming out with riot shields at 7th Avenue in Washington. So I think some of these just show like the anger that people are feeling. I'm not necessarily going to say it's super helpful to be throwing rocks at police, but I'm also not going to say that, you know, burning buildings is really my concern when people are obviously angry that nothing gets done. You know what I mean? Like, because there's always going to be those critics that are like, oh yeah, like this doesn't help, looting doesn't help, blah blah blah, like we need to come together, we need to be peaceful. But let's go back to Colin Kaepernick when he kneeled, when he did the peaceful protesting. Let's go back to the numerous times people have tried to peacefully protest. That didn't really get arrests, did it? Like, those type of protests didn't ignite an arrest. So far, it's showing that civil unrest is the way to actually maybe get what we need.
Yeah. You know what, Fiorella, I was just thinking about that same thing, because here it is, like we talk about, peaceful protest. Well, where are we at right now? What do we have? We don't have much right now. We don't, we didn't accomplish anything at this point, especially when it comes to, law enforcement. So when you see people throwing back at law enforcement, I don't want to say I encourage that behavior, but it definitely makes you realize that something's changed right now. People are that fed up that you see like people just throwing rocks now at windows and burning down precincts. The game has changed, and the deep state and the elites or whoever's running they better get their shit together. They need a police department that's going to work for the people to protect and serve, not bully, punish, and threaten their citizens. And I think it's being made loud and clear of a lot of these states that times are changing and you better watch out. So, I'm very curious to see what happens with was his name Chauvin, the police officer. What happens to him in jail? You know what I'm saying? They get, just like they had that, Minneapolis was smart enough to protect one of their own kind by keeping 100 officers outside of his door. What are they going to do when they move him through the system? Are they going to keep him in a separate jail? You know what I'm saying? Are they going to keep him away from, the yard? Because if, they get that fool in the yard, they aren't even like cops in prison. What they'll do is, they'll do something bad. So, hopefully some type of example is set and, we'll see.
And last night, fam, also California, a lot of people started texting me like, how are you? Is everything okay? Because in Fontana, California, they were having their own protests, and they had a group of people gathered in the Fontana City Hall to protest the death of George Floyd and support the Black Lives Matter movement. And this was near Sierra Avenue, which is a main street in the city. And there's some pictures there of people holding signs, very similar to what we saw Wednesday night. And this is Fontana, fam. Exactly where is Fontana?
Fontana is on the way to the Inland Empire.
Uh-huh.
It's known as like a kind of southern town of sorts. They call it Fontucky. You know what I'm saying? It is like, rural as can be. So yeah, there's a lot of poor people in Fontana.
Really?
There's a few bucks. There's a few bucks here and there, but there's a lot of poor people too as well. It's in the Inland Empire on the outskirts.
So this woman put up a video saying the cops really are jumping people in Fontana for walking around. Let's take a look at what happened.
I don't do it, Dave. We still don't do it, Dave.
Your hands on your back. Hands up. Get away. Disperse.
We're not with them. We're not with them.
All right, get them.
Go.
Get back.
Go. Come on.
Disperse. Get out of here. You'll be arrested. Get back.
Let's go. Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Clear the streets. Clear the sidewalk. You will be arrested.
Get in the car.
Like when I walk outside my house, I walk out.
Your hands on your back. Hands up. Get away. Disperse.
Why they go after her like that?
We're not with them.
So it kind of reminds me of like where we were, but none of this happened. We were out there. Johnny and I stayed for a while waiting to see if they were going to start arresting people. And I don't think it got to that point. We would have heard of it. It didn't. We left right before people started leaving. But I don't know. It depends on the police officers. If they get to that point where they're gonna go after. It was intimidating seeing the police officers with riot gear, all of this protection when these people there, these kids are holding signs. I feel like to me that's another thing that people aren't okay with. The heavily armed officers. If you go to Europe, anywhere in Europe, these people have like sticks, they have batons, they don't even have like weapons.
Guns.
It just tells you a lot about our system.
Bethlehem Testafe fam said, thank you guys for being on the front line. That's the super chat contribution.
Thank you, Bethlehem.
Yeah, it's we were on the front line the other day. I just remember walking down onto the highway and we had all our cameras and shit. I was like, oh shit, I can't believe this is happening. Like, we're really with these people walking onto the freeway over here. Well, we got to document it. Let's go. But thank you, Bethlehem, for that super chat contribution. It's contributions like that really keep this channel going and keep us out there hitting all the spots. Also, really quickly, if you haven't gone over to the ROKFIN, ROKFIN, there's only 2 viewers over there. That's not acceptable, ladies and gentlemen. Go on over to the ROKFIN. help us out. And if you got that unemployment check, endorse us for $9.99. Sorry, fam. Go right ahead.
No, fam. So there's just one last Twitter person from Fontana said this. There's a protest a street away from my house in Fontana. No guns, no violence, yet the police are out here shooting and throwing stuff at them. Where was this energy when whites were protesting against the lockdown in Rancho? No police was in sight then. And again, you mentioned the poverty in Fontana, whereas Rancho is anything but that. There's also, again, a economic divide in a lot of these things. That's honestly the where this comes down to. There's a lot of, like, if you have enough money, if you have enough wealth, they don't come after you. We've seen it here in Pasadena, how they come after the poor people. They're rarely ever hearing sirens where in the nice parts of Pasadena, but in the minority parts of Pasadena, you're always hearing the sirens. And so that's a whole other thing that is really, really deep in the structure of our system. But moving away from this, which is hard because there's been so much news regarding what's been happening, and there's going to continue to be, I believe. Twitter, we know Twitter was trying to censor Trump because all of these liberal pundits were coming in, and they actually did censor him, and they tried to play both sides, though. They tried to play both sides because they showed Donald Trump's tweet. You can see it, but you can't retweet it. You can't like it. It's completely frozen. So they show this tweet violated the Twitter rules about glorifying violence. However, Twitter has determined that it may not be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible. So Donald Trump, just so you guys know, he literally said these thugs are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him that the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. Now, this is something stupid Donald Trump did, because you're basically saying we're going to shoot these people. That's what he's suggesting. And while I think that's dangerous and I think it's awful for him to say that, him being censored, Twitter deciding to censor anybody is wrong, right? So I think, in fact, that staying there would hurt Donald Trump more, because people would see, wow, he really said this. I can't believe he said this. What? This is disgusting. Even if you support Donald Trump, hearing him say this, he's pretty much asking to shoot people, saying that it's okay to shoot people. That's exacerbating an already terrible situation. People need to see that. When you start censoring things like that, people aren't really going to see that. And that doesn't mean the intent isn't there. And so they kind of censored him. You can see the tweet, but again, you can't retweet it. But then, fam, what did Trump do? Trump
did what we thought he would do. And I said, remember a couple days ago, I said, I hope that Twitter does this to him and whatnot, because he's going to send them and he's going to go to the FCC and give power to the FCC. In particular, the platform versus publisher rule, which is like the big rule which holds everything together. Now, I would like to say something else. This tweet right over here, had Twitter just censored that tweet, I would have been okay. I would have said, okay, the looting starts, the shooting starts. I don't like that rhetoric at all. And yes, you are right, fam. They keep it up. It's harder on Donald Trump because he looks more like a thug and an asshole himself, calling other people thugs.
Yeah.
However, they also took a tweet down. They censored a tweet when he talked out about mail-in ballots just recently. You know what I'm saying? And once again, in this particular case, I agree with Donald Trump on that situation. He had every right to say it. But they censored that tweet as well. So, I mean, here's the thing. Twitter should not be in charge of freedom of speech, plain and simple. And when people keep on saying, oh, it's a private company, yeah, but they're still bound by the laws of our land. And the laws of the land are, and clearly states that if you want to be a platform, which is what Twitter claims to be, and then you hide behind this law, which allows you to become a platform, right, means you cannot be sued for ludicrous, extra extremely violent stuff that's put on your platform by somebody else. But if you decide to, and we know this, fam, shadow ban people, demonetize their videos, We all know the videos that really got hidden when we went to the California convention, and we got every single one of those candidates on record saying that the OAS was a legitimate reason to go ahead and stand by the Bolivian regime change. We put them on record. We asked them tough questions. And what did they do? They hit our stuff down. Johnny worked endlessly for like 26 hours to get all these videos down, and they put it on page 10 of Google.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everything in between was nothing to do with Cory Booker at the convention or Kamala Harris at the convention. So hiding behind this law will be no longer allowed, okay? Which means anytime they give you a strike or anytime they suspend you or demonetize you, you have a right to know exactly what's what. Just like in Tulsi Gabbard's case when it came to Google, they didn't even have to tell her why they suspended her. They didn't have to tell us why.
No.
And guess what? Now you do. The only thing that's being misunderstood here, though, is when Donald Trump says it's conservative voices that are being silenced. No, progressive anti-imperialist voices like mine and yours in the CONVO couch, they are also being censored as well. So enough is enough. This was a great move by Donald Trump, and I applaud him 100% for doing so. Do I like the FCC completely with a G-Pie? No, we have to change that institution. But I'd rather have a bad institution that's going to at least give us some transparency rather than the wild, wild west and big tech doing whatever they want, fam.
I mean, I think I would have done the same if I were him at this point. But I also think like we as a people need to fight for transparency and for more control and for more freedom of the press. Like aside from institutions like the FEC, who or the FEC, and we need to be able to have complete control of our freedom of speech. We shouldn't be censored from big government or from these private entities. It's a slippery slope either way, because either way we can have some authoritarian person in there like tomorrow who's going to censor everything, just like in 1984. But we could also have a Twitter and all these conglomerates be in charge of it as well. So, fam, we have 2 super chat contributions.
Yeah, I like to say ultimately, I think that you were right when we said this before a long time ago. Let's make it a public utility. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if it's about speech, it's about media, it's about information, and people will say, "Oh, privatization, they can do what they want." No, they can't. I mean, all the media companies are privately owned, but yet they're bound on the radio and by TV with rules. So should the internet. And they've been getting away with this too long. Trump let this go for too long. But it was kind of funny to see Twitter try to censor him and then go, okay, I'm going to make your life really difficult because now you're going to have to rewrite algorithms or explain why your algorithm is in place to put up the mainstream media's imperialistic fucking news versus independent media who's calling out the regime change and following the money. So this is a really big win, I think, for freedom of speech. And fam, did I ever tell you I'm a civil liberties guy?
Fam, I'm going to slap you.
Okay.
So we had 2 super chat contributions. One disappeared. I don't know where it went.
I'll get Jameson Doan now.
We have
Jameson.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
Okay, Jameson Doan. Pasta likes Transformers, right? 2007 TF film. Ironically, got it right with the slogan on Blockade the Police card to punish and enslave. True slogan of the police. Yeah, it's not to protect and serve. It's to punish and enslave. That was on the Decepticons car, I believe, if I'm Jameson, if I'm correct.
I thought
forgot
you were
what
a fan.
that Decepticon's name. I knew the Transformers, fam. I was a big Transformer person.
Fam, you're gonna love this last thing that I put in. The neoliberals are exploiting this right now. We knew they would. They always do. They're amplifying the anti-Trump rhetoric. Trump this, Trump that. Okay. But they're also really, really missing warmongers. So Katie Couric went on Twitter to say, and she's speaking on behalf of everybody, I guess, that it would be great to hear from Barack Obama right now. A friend just suggested he make a joint appearance with George W. Bush. Thoughts? It's just so funny. I just feel like they should just give up and be comedians, because I feel like they make me laugh with the things they say, fam. Like,
they make us laugh with bad jokes. It's terrible.
I mean, really, do we really need more warmongers at a time like this? Like, do we really need to act like they were so great and so amazing?
Yeah.
Like, it's disgusting.
You know what? And this is something that we have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? It's this the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome. It really kind of wipes away any form of accountability sometimes. In other words, no matter what this guy does, he can always, he'll always be wrong. And that means you can prop up and praise warmongers like Barack Obama because he wore a nice suit and he talked nice. And even so much that you hate Trump and you have TDS that bad that you're going to bring on who I think was the worst president of all times in George W. Bush. Now, I didn't live back in the old days, but in my time, George W. Bush was one of the worst. He was way worse than Donald Trump. It's kind of laughable because anytime you talk about certain things, it's like, oh, you sound like a Trump supporter. The other day talking about civil liberties, election integrity, and foreign policy. Oh, you sound like a Trump supporter. What the hell does that even mean? What the hell happened to the left? They've lost any fucking type of grip on reality. Really, they are lost. The Democratic Party needs to go away. The establishment needs to be crushed once and for all because this and they are both sad.
The Democratic Party isn't the left, and that's something that the left, the true left, really has to tell them, like, okay, yeah, we want no association. Because like yesterday, I was reading a lot of comments on what was happening, and let me tell you, there are some people on the right who are literally calling the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they're saying they're Marxists. And that they want the communist takeover of the United States. And I'm like, listen, as somebody that is an actual socialist, these people are not anywhere near Marxists. Stop. Like, can we just have a little bit of education or something on what these things are? They are literally Republicans, you guys. Like,
the Republicans light.
Yeah, but I mean, not even. They speak better. They are more socially accepting of things because it doesn't cost them anything to be socially accepting. Not because necessarily they believe in it. A few years ago, Hillary Clinton said marriage was between a man and a woman, and she was well in her 50s, I believe.
Yeah. It was in Albany, New York. Yeah, I remember it.
So it's like Obama himself as well. So like it's not necessarily real. I mean, I definitely think they're all like one party, and they'll vary in certain issues from here on there, but I pretty much they're all on the same spectrum. So it's really crazy when I see like people on the right call them Marxist. I just laugh. And it's the same when I see people like Katie Couric calling for Barack Obama and George W. Bush. George W. Bush, who got us into the most costly war in my lifetime thus far. Yeah. When we're still reeling like the consequences from.
Yeah. And don't forget, this is a man who tried to kill my dad. He really said that on the floor of Congress when he was making a reason to go into Iraq. But that just explains it all, fam. They understand there's low-informed voters that they can just say something and they'll be like, Obama, you communist son of a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Listen, we talked about this whole thing that, Bernie Sanders really isn't he's a democratic socialist. It's a far difference and a far cry from a real socialist. You know what I'm saying? It's still, a democratic socialist.
Bernie Sanders was a compromise for a lot of people on the left.
He was literally a compromise.
He was.
Yeah.
We're all like, we're to the left of Bernie, but I mean, he's the best, he's really like, America is like here and he's like here and we're like here. So it's just like, it was basically a compromise. So when people say, well, just because you didn't get all you wanted. No. We weren't ever going to be part of this whole shebang Democratic Republican Party that we have here. Yeah. We were never going to be a part of that. Bernie Sanders kind of brought people in as a last attempt to save it, which, by the way, Bernie, you won't save it. Nobody can save this party at this point. Even Donald Trump, as bad as he may get, it's not going to save the Democratic Party. It's just very clear that's not happening.
And after yesterday's executive order, I think that Donald Trump did a lot to get himself some libertarian support. You know what I'm saying? I really believe he did. At the end of the day, they're going to be like, you know what? And they have their own shit. They can't get a libertarian candidate. But those people out there, anybody who believes in their civil liberties, once again, and we did a video with this, me, Ron, and Tim Canova, where we debated this, where me and Tim wanted this executive order. We said, we understand the problems with the FCC and Ajit Pai. We're not saying it's a cakewalk, but it's sure as hell better than just letting these big tech companies run free without no oversight or no accountability. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But like I said, fam, this was a really big move. And he should have done this sooner, but I'm glad he did it now. And I hope it really helps us out, because really, I don't want to continue dealing with this, with big tech doing what they're doing. Remember when we first started, we would come up, if you would watch what we call our fan videos, whether it be Jimmy Dore, Ron Placone, as soon as a Ron Placone video would end, one of our videos might come up, whether it be Jimmy or Kim, whatnot. Well, they changed that algorithm to always go to a mainstream media show in the recommended views. Sometimes they've really, made it really convoluted, and therefore you can't see what's going on. So I don't want to deal with big tech in Silicon Valley deciding what's freedom of speech. Is there a lot more to be done? Yes. Ajit Pai is not a good chairman. You know what I'm saying? Net neutrality. He wants to put a price tag on it because Donald Trump is a businessman. And he'll sell anything. So even though he believes, and part of the reason that this happened is because they attacked him personally. So that's why he did this. So, even though he's doing it because of his own ego somewhat, like we said, fam, I don't care as much because it's the right thing that needs to be done at this time. A lot of work to do, but a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm a little hesitant to say it's going to go well. I hope it does. I really do. But at the same time, I'm not trusting of the FCC. I'm not trusting of GPI. There are still lobbyists there that are trying to push their own narrative in, their own things in, and that's not going to stop if we don't have the protections we need for a free and fair internet either. Yeah. So, like you said, there is a lot of work to be done, but I'm not necessarily against him doing like a counter move to what happened, because obviously I think it's wrong to censor anybody. As much as I dislike Donald Trump, and as much as what he said was entirely awful and wrong, and he should have been criticized for it, and he was, just censoring him just sets a slippery slope. Now they can censor him, they can censor you, they can censor me. They're going to censor all of the left. They've been taking down Twitter accounts in mass. They just took down another one today. The Kamala Harris people went in there and accused this person, and they took her Twitter account down. They can do that to anybody. They can do that to your YouTube channel. They can continue to do this. So something has to be done.
Yeah. Something, fam, there wasn't a lot of Russian narrative fucking taken down by all their little friends. They were able to push that phony Russian thing. Did they ever censor Adam Schiff? He lied for 2 years straight, knowing that CrowdStrike had no empirical evidence that Russia fucking helped anybody, the Trump campaign especially, but yet he kept spewing that lie, that propaganda. He's never ever received a strike, never gotten taken anything down. And in fact, they boosted stuff. And why does it have to be Donald Trump to do this again? Why is it Donald Trump? Why is it Donald Trump that accuses the Democratic Party? Where's the left here? The left has gone to sleep.
Well, the left is too busy hating Donald Trump to see that this is not okay. Some parts of the left, not all of the left. It's mostly Democrats, but a lot of people on the left are okay with Donald Trump being censored. And I disagree with you there. I disagree with all those of you who want him censored. I not because I could care less what Donald Trump says. It's more of like the right to say it. And, we have seen this affect us directly, and we know that's what would happen. So,
and the talking points, fam, about, it's a private company. It's like now you're using the talking points of the conservatives 20 years ago. So a private company can piss all over our civil liberties and can have that much power? No. Jackson Fax says, thank you for the super chat contribution. It's always refreshing to hear your voices, fam.
Thank you, fam.
Much love.
We love your voice.
And I got another one over here. Oh, Jackson Fax has the best voice in the game.
He does.
In the game. We have another one over here.
Louise Brooks.
Louise Brooks, glad you are safe and thank you. Read The Price of Loyalty by Paul O'Neill, scathing insight into Bush administration. I will read that book. I heard about that. That was the worst president in the face of the earth, man.
The CIA was heavily involved in his presidency. So
Dick Cheney, man. Dick Cheney is, we talk about a guy like,
father. So, all right, guys. Johnny, you have anything else?
So the only thing is that this Unicorn Riot channel is actually on the ground. So maybe you all should check that out. I think they're getting censored. Also surprised because
they were trending on Twitter last night.
They were definitely trending. It only has 135,000 views, which I find to be unbelievable. because yeah, he was on the ground, this guy, or his team, just documenting everything. So
cool.
There might still be more to come later.
Are they as good as True Rebel Network? It doesn't look like it.
No, I'm better, but at least they can go live. I just need more funds to go live like that.
Yeah, we were looking into going to Minneapolis, and but we also have things here. We'll see what happens here. We'll see what what's next for LA, and then we have some races on our minds. Florida.
Yeah, we gotta
Nancy
get going.
Pelosi
We gotta get
and
to
Shahid up
Florida.
there. Angelica Duena's here. We have a lot of work to do here. So all right, guys, that's it, Johnny. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Pasta
Jardula.
Fiorella.
Johnny Sue spinning on those 1s and 2s.
He's spinning and spinning. Combo out.
Love you guys.
Bye. Stay safe.
Give him his peace,
Fight the
Johnny.
power.